Having death as an actual concern in your films really raises up the stakes, and sometimes you wonder maybe getting cut in half, stabbed through the stomach twice, or even being vaporized twice should be more fatal. In this video, I'll explore every time a character was revived in some way or another, and I'm curious if you'll agree with my picks on who is or isn't acceptable to come back, because as it turns out, 10 years ago, Star Wars was actually not all that infamous for bringing characters back, but boy, has that changed. Before going over each character, I have to explain what makes the deaths of characters in movies so impactful. Why does it create such good drama, and why does it make the tension so much higher? Well, this can be explained by the fact that everyone knows death is bad and something we don't want for the people we care about to happen to. So when the films create a character that we grow to love and attach to, we get that please don't let that character die at the end feeling. Like when you're watching The Phantom Menace and Qui-Gon dies, or when your favorite background character is casually obliterated by Palpatine. And no, that was not an oddly specific example. Everyone should be crying when Kit Fisto gets killed off. Also, when you believe that in this universe, characters will stay dead after dying with no question, this grounds it far more in reality, and now all the death-defying things that in a Disney piece would feel just like another day for your average Jedi start to feel more like an incredible feat that the main characters are performing. Also, it's been proven by writers and audiences' reactions to their writings that when the other characters are affected by this death, it can lead to an even stronger reaction from audiences, and at the end of the day, it is just a great way to create drama from the shock of it that also is part of the story and necessary to the story. So, don't have it just be for shock value, but it still can provide that if it is very crucial to the story and really fits in and makes the whole thing more complete as a whole. On the flip side, when every other character we see dying comes back all the time, this makes us not care as much when the people are in deadly situations, and also makes future deaths far less impactful rather than a realistic and brutal world where the consequences of death matter. The first big character we had coming back was actually before Disney in the George Lucas era, that, as you can see, being Darth Maul, who was quote-unquote killed in episode 1, but is found again by his brother Savage in the Clone Wars. Now I want to explore two things here. One, did audiences truly believe he was dead for those 12 years that followed 1999? And two, why is it that this revival has never bothered me or other fans for the most part? Well, starting with the first bit, as to whether or not Darth Maul was supposed to die here originally, it is true that George Lucas wanted him to die in The Phantom Menace originally to create this shocking moment, and because he didn't play a much bigger role in the trilogy outside of this. So it does seem that the fandom would have been led to believe that he was dead until the decision to bring him back was made while creating the Clone Wars, because Lucas apparently always regretted killing him off so quickly, as he had other plans for the character. Now, probably a better way to go about this research is to just ask you guys in the audience that happen to be a little bit older, because according to my analytics, that actually is quite a good bit of you, which surprises me. Tell me in the comments if you always thought Darth Maul was dead before the Clone Wars came out, or if there was something in the fandom that led you to believe otherwise. But at one point, George even had plans for his own sequel trilogy to have Maul and Talon as the main Sith. In case you don't know, Darth Talon is a Legends character that lived in universe after the time of the Galactic Civil War. And I feel like the reason this always works is because of how Darth Maul really lost everything after this lightsaber fight. His legs, his mind, and his role in the Sith Order under Sidious. So while he doesn't die here, he loses enough to the point that it's still impactful and he's practically died. Also, this type of moment still works as a shocking twist where the villain of the movie is cut in half and falls down a deep pit. Don't forget, it also helps how awesome he was in the Clone Wars and what Sam Witwer provided for expanding his character. Although, I will say I do get kind of tired of people hating on episode 1 Maul for being a flat character that they didn't care about, because in The Phantom Menace, Maul is actually supposed to be more of a physical threat that embodies evil and power. Also, he's just so cool in that movie, I can't even with those people. Now, Palpatine is someone who I pretty much have the complete opposite opinion for, because The nice thing with Darth Maul is that when he was revived in the Clone Wars, at the time, he was basically the only character this was done to, whereas the Emperor, on the other hand, is basically the main villain and mastermind of Star Wars, whose actual death and destruction is essential to the original story, or just the story as a whole. So I feel like there's probably 1 out of 10 people, if even that, who didn't have a problem, at least somewhat, with Palpatine coming back in episode 9, and that's because it really ruins the story from the first 6 episodes. They don't really explain how this happened in a contending way, or at all for that matter, and it just kind of feels random why the decision was made in the first place to bring Palpatine back as the main villain in this movie. I mean, even when I liked this movie when it first came out, I still thought that the inclusion of the Emperor was a little bit odd. Also, when he's already died in the past, it shows us the difference between his original death, which hit really hard, and then this new one where we don't even know if we should believe it anymore. Also, I feel like this is a pretty goofy death, but that's just my opinion. If you like this movie, don't feel inclined to agree. It's not some objective thing that the sequels are bad. It's just, a lot of people kind of bandwagon because there's certain things they don't like. I don't know, I'm going on a rant. I'm going to stop now. Now I'm going to briefly touch on basically every other character death that I think is worth mentioning, and tell me in the comments how many of these picks you actually agree with. So Boba Fett is one of these odd ones where no one ever really confirmed anything from Lucasfilm, but it has still always been generally agreed among the community that he survived the Sarlacc pit. I mean, even when I was like 5, I remember my brother telling me that this was the case. Part of this is because since people love Boba Fett so much, this quick of a death was simply not enough for them, so they forced him to come back in the Legends continuity. But forget not that thanks to the Book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, he now survived this in canon too. So overall, I don't have too big of a problem with it, where kind of like Darth Maul, he's not a big enough character to matter that much, but on the flip side, he also doesn't really expand his character afterward, unlike Maul, enough to warrant him bringing his character back. Moff Gideon is of course someone who didn't actually die in The Mandalorian Season 2, but I think works here very well enough because he's completely defeated at the end of Season 2, and his story, role, and conflict with Mando is all wrapped up with Din Djarin now possessing the Darksaber. And looking over to Wikipedia, after he was imprisoned by the New Republic, it was assumed that Gideon would receive the death penalty. But then it's like they ran out of ideas for Season 3 and just brought him back, since Gideon is the only main villain they have in the show. Unfortunately, in a season with already so many problems, in my opinion, this just acts as a nail in the coffin to prove this season as a downgrade in quality of what came before. All in my opinion, of course, as always. Also, this makes his real death here feel very unimportant, as not only was he just defeated the last season, but also he only just reappeared in the episode before the finale, only to have his plans foiled and die immediately thereafter. And let's not forget that Moff got defeated and seemingly killed in Season 1's finale as well, but that time it didn't feel quite as stupid for him to come back. I also have 2 characters from the Clone Wars worth mentioning today that were both brought back in Season 7. One is Echo, who was in the first 3 seasons serving as an ARC trooper, as well as one of the rookies aboard the Rishi outpost station with Fives and Heavy. In lore, Echo survived the explosion at Lolo Sayu and lost his leg and arm, as well as got damaged neural and respiratory systems from the injuries he received. However, he was captured by separatists and placed in status in the Cyber Center on Skako Minor by Wat Tambor until he was found by Rex and the Bad Batch. While I suppose this is an unpopular opinion, I've actually never really liked Echo coming back, because to me, I loved him so much as a character in the early seasons of the Clone Wars, and especially so after his sacrifice for the team at the Citadel, so I always just thought that this dampened that sacrifice a little bit. Now I suppose if a character just dies from a fight or something, then them surviving tends to work, but if they die and it's to sacrifice themselves, or if it's essential to the story, that's where I start to have a problem with it. The other Clone Wars guy I should mention is Admiral Trench, who, I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of thought him being brought back was a little goofy, considering that he was literally blown to smithereens. But I suppose he's not that important of a character, and who knows, maybe he even survived Anakin stabbing him here, as that would be more reasonable than this. Anyway, While this probably shouldn't even be in this video, I kind of wanted to sort of mention that when I first saw The Force Awakens in the theaters, I genuinely thought that not only Finn, but also Kylo Ren died here. I mean, that really confused me for a while, and I didn't get it because they never really showed Kylo escaping as the base was being destroyed, and also with Finn especially, he was stabbed in the shoulder and then slashed across the back with Kylo Ren's lightsaber, so it is pretty incredible he survived that so easily, which could raise a whole other discussion about how lethal lightsabers should be, but that's a time for another video, or maybe a video for another time. One last character worth mentioning is Reva, who is probably the one that makes the least sense on here, other than maybe Admiral Trench, because she may or may not have been stabbed through the stomach twice by Darth Vader, but oh well. And that was probably one of the worst ones for making the stakes feel non-existent in Kenobi. As far as Force ghosts go, I could see some discussion around that ruining it a little as we see them come back, but I really think if done right, it works just fine as they are spirits. And while I went over so many examples of deaths that were ruined, the best example of one that perfectly did its job, actually in a good way, is Kanan Jarrus's death, where he dies and then never comes back again, making that hit all the more harder. And Freddie Prinze Jr. agrees with me as well, so there's that.
As live action Kanan in like a live action Star Wars Rebels, but
everyone says that. No, the stories was perfect, and every time they add more, it just dilutes it. Every time. When Dave asked me to do the Bad Batch thing, I didn't want to do it. So it's gonna dilute it, man. It's gonna lessen. No.
So guys, I might actually be streaming tomorrow for the not first time, but you know, I'm gonna try and do this every Saturday. I think it'll be actually really fun for not only the audience, but also just me. I mean, I really think I'm gonna enjoy doing it, but I can't make any promises. It depends on if I get my brother's PC set up and all that good stuff, but I'll do the best I can. And you know, some of my fans, specifically Detroit Man, that guy, he's been asking for a face reveal pretty bad, so I don't know, it's weird because originally I wanted to do it at 1K, and I probably should have, but you know, you guys told me not to. So anyway, that's it for this video. You can subscribe if you want to. There's also a join button, which is completely optional, but would truly help me out and the channel if you want to do that. That probably doesn't sound that genuine anymore because I say that every time, but hey, it's still there. And also I'm doing a face reveal at some point, like I just told you. These types of videos come out every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I also post shorts on Saturday. But yeah, see ya.